expected to learn more today about records of children in Dallas County juvenile custody after allegations that some were held in isolation for improper periods of time. Commissioner Andrew Summerman sued the county juvenile department for access to those records called observation sheets. But Fox 4's Sean Rabb reports the juvenile records dispute is still not settled.
The hearing today was supposed to decide whether County Commissioner Andrew Summerman could get 90,000 observation sheets, records of juveniles in the Juvenile Detention Center. The judge, Eric Moyer, did not rule on that today because of another investigation taking place.
The Texas Juvenile Justice Department ought to be able to proceed unfettered for a definite period of time.
Because of the state's criminal investigation into allegations of neglect and abuse at the Henry Wade Juvenile Justice Center, Judge Eric Moyer pushed pause on the hearing to decide whether Commissioner Andrew Summerman, a member of the Juvenile Board, gets documents he's seeking, 90,000 observation sheets.
That takes precedence certainly over anything the Commissioner's Court is doing, especially because in my view they have very limited powers. I think they're frustrated by that, but they have very limited powers in this regard.
Summerman says his focus is different from the Office of Inspector General.
Commissioner Court decides how much we're paying people to observe these children, where the TJJD is more along the lines of, are they following policies and procedures?
The state search could cover what Summerman wants, but the Office of Inspector General has not specifically said what its investigation encompasses.
Because we don't know exactly what the OIG is looking for yet, there's a potential that they do ask for the same records, in which case it could actually help everyone.
If there has been neglect and abuse inside Henry Wade, Executive Director Darrell Beatty says he wants to know.
We welcome the fact that TJJD is coming in and looking. Matter of fact, I asked for them to do an audit early so that we can look and see what we need to do as far as reforms or anything that we need to prepare to make sure we take care of kids in the best interest of our community.
Judge Eric Moyer did not rule today. He told the attorneys for the Juvenile Department to report back in 21 days or less exactly what the state is looking at. Then he'll make a decision on whether Commissioner Andrew Summerman will be able to see the documents he's requested. Sean Rabb, Fox 4 News.
So the court hopes to know more about the state investigation into the juvenile department in the next 3 weeks, but there's no specific timetable on how long that investigation must take.
More discussion on the juvenile curfew in Cambridge and what the mayor would like to change. Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight at 6 o'clock. I'm Todd Carley. Right now, the Cambridge mayor and council are discussing the juvenile curfew. The temporary curfew expired last month, and now there is a proposal to continue it for a year with some changes. WBOC's Lauren Miller is in the Newsplex tonight, and Lauren, the mayor will be reading his proposal of a different version of the ordinance.
Todd, Mayor Steve Rideout is proposing that a new ordinance is drafted to incorporate a local care team. That team would consist of the Dorchester Department of Social Services, the Department of Juvenile Services, and the public school system.
A team of county services on the front lines for a curfew. City of Cambridge's Mayor Steve Rideout is proposing this rewrite so that services can be provided to families.
They will be able to identify what the challenges are for that family and help moms and dads and kids find solutions to those problems. It may be a parenting problem. It may be a problem of a mom and dad are working 2 and 3 jobs and they have to do that to make a living.
And if a child is caught out past curfew twice, that local care team would be notified. Local care team coordinator and management board director Nancy Shockley says while the team is nothing new, it will provide support for parents in a voluntary sense rather than forcing them to come.
It's just the opportunity to engage with families differently. You know, it's always intimidating to go into any agency because your child is, you know, acting out and has got in trouble with the law, so you have to go to juvenile services. You know, with social services, it can be a whole host of reasons.
And Mayor Rideout says this proposal would eliminate the financial penalties the parents would face with the original curfew, and not only help families establish a relationship with these services, but it will be a proactive approach.
Mayor Rideout added that mental health groups, a church pastor, or even a nonprofit organization could provide more information and work with that child and their family to figure out ways to keep them on the right track. Todd?
LA County probation supervisor has been charged with using excessive force. This after dramatic video released by the LA Times sparked an investigation.
Yes, it stems from an incident in October of 2020 when 5 probation officers tried to subdue a teenage boy. KCAL News reporter Joy Benedict is here now with more information. Joy?
Yeah, guys, I mean, this one really is tough, and county leaders today weren't holding back when they announced charges against a supervisory probation officer who they say used excessive force against a minor in custody. It is hard to imagine and even tougher to watch. As we warned you, the video you are about to see could be jarring. It is video that is hard to watch as a 17-year-old is held down as he screams and his foot is pulled up to his head. But this isn't a schoolyard fight. These are adults inside a county correctional facility.
Forgive me for breaking up a little bit because I'm reminded of my time serving time within these juvenile halls and these institutions where I too was being abused.
LA County's Probation Oversight Commissioner, Frankie Carrillo, couldn't help but get emotional when discussing the incident at a news conference.
I think about this young boy who had to go to sleep that night wondering why was it that the adults in the room who were there to protect him failed him.
LA County District Attorney George Gascon announced his office is charging one of these probation officers, Oscar Cross, with assault on a minor.
Defendant Cross then bent the youth's right leg backwards towards his head even further while the youth screamed in pain. This was a brutal assault on a child by a person entrusted with his care while he was in custody of the probation department.
The incident happened in October of 2020 at Camp Kilpatrick in Malibu, a rehabilitation facility for juvenile offenders. But the incident first came to light earlier this year in an investigation by the LA Times, which says it obtained the county facility security footage from an unidentified source within the probation department. The child had reportedly been in the room looking for food when he was cornered, and that's when the video starts. You can see the teen appear to swipe away the arm of the probation officer when he is shoved against the wall. Within 10 seconds, he's face down on a mattress with 2 adults on top of him. Less than a minute later, Cross grabs his leg, pinning it back, a position that just gets worse for 90 seconds before he is finally released and dragged out of the room, crying.
Supervisor Cross's actions should have resulted in an immediate dismissal, not a slap on the wrist, not a covering up of this abusive behavior.
These county leaders praised the investigation and those who came forward for shedding a light, while vowing to make sure this doesn't happen again.
There are great staff members who work within probation, but when one of them does something wrong, it affects them all.
Now, the DA's office declined to comment on the employment status of the probation officer. They say he is not in custody at this time, but is expected to surrender in an arraignment in the near future. I also spoke with the attorney who is representing the teen tonight, and that person tells me they plan on filing a civil suit. Pat.
Rikers Island marking the 7th death at the jail complex this year. CBS 2's Jessica Moore has a reaction from the city's Department of Correction.
44-year-old Curtis Davis was found unresponsive in his cell around 5 o'clock Sunday morning and pronounced dead 30 minutes later, according to officials. Davis is the 7th inmate to die at Rikers since January. The rash of fatalities has led to protests and calls for a federal takeover, though Mayor Adams and the DOC commissioner say that's not the answer.
I know I can fix Rikers. I want to give the opportunity to do so. I did in 18 months. What previous administrations were unable to do.
Earlier this month, an unresponsive inmate named Felix Taveras died after Rikers medical staff gave him an overdose drug. That's according to DOC records obtained by CBS New York. Those records showed Taveras suffered chest pains and a possible seizure. CBS 2 has learned 4 Department of Correction employees were suspended after his death. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District recommended an outside authority known as a receiver should take over Rikers. That decision lies in the hands of Judge Laura Taylor Swain, who wrote in a filing last week, the city has failed to, quote, address the dangerous conditions that perpetually plague the jails. But DOC Commissioner Luis Molina, who has held the position for less than 2 years, disagrees and says conditions at Rikers are improving on his watch.
There has to be an appreciation
for the level of stabilization that we were able to do in the last 19 months.
The city controller recently released a monthly dashboard report showing progress at Rikers in June, including fewer incidents of violence, 47 assaults, down 7 from May, 67 fewer fights, and 18 fewer slashings and stabbings. But for the families of the inmates who die at Rikers, improvements aren't enough, and even one death in custody is too many. Jessica Moore, CBS 2 News.
And the next court date to discuss a receivership is August 10th. The medical examiner is working to determine the cause of Curtis Davis's
another death at Rikers Island, making this the 6th person in state custody, in Rikers custody, to die in the hands of NYC jails. News 12's Valerie Ryan spoke with local advocates, and she joins us now to tell us more about this latest tragedy.
Officials say another life has been lost while in custody on Rikers Island.
It's heartbreaking.
This comes as the 7th death in New York City jails this year, including an individual who passed shortly after being released. We spoke with an advocate from the Katal Center, which fights to end mass incarceration, and this is what she had to say.
Under Mayor Eric Adams' watch, there have been 26 people that have died as of now. And these are 26 human beings, 26 human lives that have families, that have loved ones.
The DOC tells us 44-year-old Curtis Davis was found unresponsive in his cell at around 5 a.m. yesterday morning. The DOC says he received immediate medical attention but was pronounced dead at approximately 5:37 a.m.
I'm not surprised. What I'm surprised about is allowing it for this long.
Henry Robinson is a leader of the Katal Center who also has spent time in Rikers, and he tells us the jail's environment fuels its corruption.
What people don't know is that in Rikers, we have officers and individuals that are humans, like you and me, that have good days and bad days, like you and me. But that's an environment that create more bad days than good.
The Department of Correction also tells us one assistant deputy warden and 2 officers were suspended for potential violations related to these deaths. And earlier today, the mayor addressed concerns about Rikers Island and says every death should be taken seriously.
Fix Rikers. I know I can fix Rikers. I want to give the opportunity to do so.
Leaders of the Katal Center say they want the city to appoint a federal receiver to take control of Rikers to help improve its conditions and reduce violence. At this hour, the cause of Davis's death is still unknown and the investigation is ongoing. At Rikers Island, I'm Valerie Ryan, News 12.
Deadly shooting in East Harlem to talk about this morning. Police are searching for the gunman who shot and killed a 55-year-old man. Eyewitness News reporter Johnny Fernandez joins us live in East Harlem with the very latest right now. Good morning, Johnny.
Hey, good morning, Michelle. And this was a very scary scene for those that were here overnight. Now, police say that this man, he did not make it, but people that were here say that the response to save this man was within seconds. But of course, unfortunately, he didn't make it. But you can see right behind me that police are still investigating this scene overnight. But this was a video from overnight when police started their investigation. Now, this shooting happened over on 118th and Lexington Avenue. Police say focused their investigation around a blue electric scooter. They say that the 55-year-old victim was shot in the torso and leg. He was taken to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now, residents in this area, including a district leader of the area, spoke out about the violence. Take a listen.
It's concerning and it's alarming, the fact that, I had to come downstairs to usher my grandchildren and their mom into their apartment to make sure that they got in safely. That's concerning. This is a good community and it's got a lot of really good people who live in it.
So police right now, they're still investigating the motive behind this shooting. A lot of questions still remain. Of course, once we get those new details, we'll let you guys know here on air and online.
Class of recruits sworn in for the city's troubled Department of Correction, and a takeover of Rikers by the feds still looms. CBS 2 investigative reporter Tim McNicholas spoke to the DOC commissioner.
Well, Commissioner Luis Molina says the DOC can't fix decades-old problems overnight. Meanwhile, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York says he doesn't want to wait any longer for substantial progress.
You now just took the first step of becoming
one of New York City's boldest.
128 new recruits sworn in at the police academy, eager to begin their training, even as a federal judge will soon consider whether the jails they want to work in should remain in the city's control. What are your expectations of them? Is it maybe higher than past recruit classes, given everything that's going on right now?
I expect them to be humane. I expect them to be able to support the people that are in our custody, but all of that has to be done on a foundation of safety and security.
Earlier this week, Southern District U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said an outside authority known as a receiver should take over Rikers Island, a decision that will ultimately be up to Judge Laura Taylor Swain. Does that statement from the U.S. Attorney change anything you're doing to reform Rikers?
Oh, absolutely not. We're staying focused on our mission.
Judge Swain wrote in a filing Tuesday that the city has failed to address the dangerous conditions that perpetually plague the jails. Molina emphasized he respects Williams and Swain, but he says violence is down on Rikers Island and the staff is showing up to work more.
I understand from many that their patience is wearing thin, but I would say there has to be an appreciation for the level of stabilization that we were able to do in the last 19 months.
I said it's time to what?
But the 6 deaths of Rikers detainees so far this year have sparked protests and calls for a federal takeover. Jail records show earlier this month, medical staff gave an anti-overdose drug to an unresponsive inmate named Felix Tavares, who'd suffered chest pains and a possible seizure. After Tavares died, CBS 2 learned 4 DOC employees were suspended.
We took immediate action, and it's ongoing investigation, and if more discipline is warranted, then we will address that issue then.
Tim McNicholas, CBS.